Thank you very much. It's a delight to be here. I love that Dr. Stanczyk started us out with a hockey analogy. I'm a hockey mom. My 14-year-old plays hockey, so I'll try to throw a little hockey in as well. I lead McKinsey and Company's global manufacturing practice. Most of my work in New Jersey is with pharmaceutical and medical device companies, but I work with colleagues around the world across all sectors as we help companies think about manufacturing strategies, manufacturing productivity improvement, and other issues in manufacturing. When you think of manufacturing, do you think about where the puck used to be? Probably not. This is not the image we have of manufacturing anymore. We probably think about manufacturing looking more like this. But if we're going to skate to the puck, we have to start thinking about manufacturing images like this. 3D product development that's transferred electronically into manufacturing, blurring the lines between who is in product development or R&D and who is in manufacturing. We have to think about digital manufacturing management, so managing performance in our plants through digital sensors, managing capacity and performance across our internal networks, but also our supply networks globally, using rapid access to real-time information, the ability to track trends and analyze them real-time. And we have to think about completely new technologies like additive manufacturing. This is a 3D printed car on the bottom left-hand side. So these kinds of new technologies and new ways of working are changing the global landscape of manufacturing more dramatically than perhaps ever before, certainly since Henry Ford invented the assembly line. Our manufacturing practice at McKinsey teamed up with our McKinsey Global Institute, which is a group of economists around the world, to understand whether manufacturing was still important to our economies, particularly our developed economies, and what some of the most important trends were that would help us advise companies and countries about manufacturing. Here are some of the things we found. As we've talked about, manufacturing is about 16% of global GDP, or value add, around the world. In a country like the United States, a very developed country that has already been moving into the service economy, we see value add from manufacturing is only 12%. Employment, both globally and in developed countries, is even a bit less. However, if you look at manufacturing's contributions to exports, to private sector R&D, and maybe most important to productivity growth, which drives the growth in our standard of living, you see that manufacturing is far more important than just the size of the sector. Manufacturing makes outsized contributions to our economies, both developed and developing, and therefore is critical and will remain critical to the health of our economies. We also looked at the differentiation between manufacturing and service jobs. There's been a lot of discussion, at least in the United States, about whether we should have a manufacturing or a service economy. And in fact, these are blurred. There is no strong distinction. As you can see from this chart, only a small portion of the total manufacturing employment, in this case in the United States, but the same is true around the world, are the old-fashioned assembly jobs that we all think of as manufacturing jobs. A lot of the jobs in manufacturing, and even more so in high-tech, advanced manufacturing, are more service-like. And then if you look at the service jobs that manufacturing creates to support the total value proposition of a manufacturer's support to its customers, you can see that assembly jobs are a small portion of the total. Many companies, for example, now not only make products to sell to customers, but then also provide some services to those customers based on their expertise about their products, about the way the products are made, and about the way that the products perform. And so this blurring of manufacturing and services is an important element of the manufacturing economy going forward, and therefore an important element of how companies and countries should think about their manufacturing strategy. In fact, part of the research we did was to try to understand what are the factors in countries or in regions that drive manufacturing investment. There has been a lot of discussion, certainly in the United States, about the importance of labor skills, but even more so, the role of labor cost. All of the discussion about offshoring manufacturing, having manufacturing outsourced and offshored to lower cost countries, is all about how manufacturers have been able to take advantage of labor wage differentials between developed countries and developing. So you see jobs going to China. And recently, sorry, recently, I don't know what little they, all right, I can hold up the podium. Recently, that's okay. Maybe that's where, okay, great. Recently, there's been a lot of discussion in the US about these jobs coming back as wages go up in China and in other countries around the world. But actually, in the research we've done, we do not see that wage differentials are the primary driver of most manufacturing decisions, and I'll show you that in a minute. Non-labor inputs, particularly energy, certainly are a big factor, but not for all manufacturing sectors. They actually are a factor for one particular segment of the economy, and quite important, but not the biggest factor for all sectors. Infrastructure, the cost of transportation and logistics, often are an important part of outweighing some of the cost advantages from low labor costs. And as we see energy prices change, new technologies in logistics management come about, we see some of these costs lowering. But again, not the biggest drivers of where capital investments are being made. Instead, innovation, the need to be able to access the latest innovation in manufacturing process technologies, is one of the most important reasons why companies choose one location over another. And the second most important factor that we have found is the need to be able to service very diverse markets around the world, and therefore to have great access and proximity to demand. In 2025, for the first time, the consumption of manufactured goods in emerging markets will be higher than the consumption of manufactured goods in developed markets. That is a radical change in how manufacturing goods are demanded and where they're needed. That will change the face of manufacturing forever. Being able to service those markets means not only being able to access those markets, but being able to understand those markets and create goods that are actually tailored for those markets. The other major factor that we see in terms of demand is that we see more demand for product variety, for product complexity, for product customization now more than ever before. You can look across any industry sector, the number of automobile models, the number of pharmaceutical packaging put-ups. Any sector you look at has far greater product variety now than it did before. And this puts a premium on having shorter supply chains, less investment in inventory, less forward manufacturing before demand is known, there's much greater opportunity to be responsive if you have a shorter supply chain. So we're seeing a number of forces at work, both rapid changes in technologies that we talked about before, and rapid changes in demand patterns that are reshaping manufacturing. Therefore, we call what's going to happen next in manufacturing next shoring. It's not about offshoring production to chase low wage rates, and we don't see a lot of reshoring purely from a wage rate perspective. What we do see are investments being made around the world to take advantage of new innovations and to take advantage of proximity to demand and ability to serve consumers and customers with much more varied tastes than in the past. Now, of course, to understand this, you have to understand the different sectors in manufacturing. Not all manufacturing industries are the same, and so they are not all driven by the same economic drivers. In our studies, we looked at all manufacturing and broke them down into 5 different segments that were not by industry, but rather by what drove manufacturing strategic decisions. What were the most important factors in driving manufacturing competitiveness? And we ended up with 5 different segments. The first one, global innovation for local markets, are things like automotives. Pharmaceuticals fit into this category. Industries where companies are typically global, where they're investing in R&D globally, but where there is some differentiation in what customers require around the world, and there is value in being close to their markets. Regional processing is the next segment that we created. Think about food processing, for example. This is a highly labor-intensive industry, but the dynamics are not driven by wage rates. By its very nature, regionally processed goods have to be processed near the demand markets. And so demand is what drives these industries as well. The third is energy and resource-intensive commodities. And this is the segment, as you would expect, that's highly driven by changes in energy costs. So in the United States, as energy costs have declined, this industry has prospered. The last 2 segments are highly tradable and are driven by wage rate differentials and other economic factors where companies are trying to source to get the lowest possible total cost. Global technologies, think of the iPhone. Highly tradable, easy to move around the world. And labor-intensive tradables are things like apparel and toys. What surprised me when we finished our study was to look at the relative size of these different segments. So that labor-intensive tradables that, at least in the United States, we hear a whole lot about, these were offshored, and they're not going to be reshored, except in specific pockets. Labor-intensive tradables, however, are only 7% of the total global manufacturing value add. The global technology and innovators, which are also sourced globally and have now really taken root in Asia, are 8% of global manufacturing value add. If you look at this top category, global innovation for local markets, again, the automotives, pharmaceuticals, things like that, that's 35% of global value add. It's the largest manufacturing segment. It's not driven by labor costs, it's driven by proximity to demand and proximity to innovation. It represents a huge opportunity for developed and developing markets alike. And you can see that if you analyze what has happened in the United States to manufacturing since the recovery. Manufacturing employment over the last 20 years in the United States certainly has dropped, as we all know. So this place is from 1998 to 2013. And if you look at these drops by the 5 segments I just showed you, you can see the story play out. You see the bottom green line dropping the most precipitously, and that's, again, the labor-intensive tradables, like apparel, like toys. The next line that drops is that bright blue line of global technologies, things like the iPhone. You can see that the most stable has been regional processing, and the second most stable, global innovation for local markets. Both of those have outperformed the average in the United States. And that's as you would expect. These are following US demand patterns. As demand decreases, employment decreases. As demand increases, employment increases, and more investment is made. In fact, if you look at the causes of US employment drops in manufacturing, a bigger cause than the wage rate differentials between the US and China, for example, a larger cause is the fact that labor productivity improvements in US manufacturing were faster than US demand growth. This is another picture of kind of the same story, which is this is the net job gains in US manufacturing through the recovery, so January 2010 to last February. And you can see that primarily it's driven in the automotive sector and related areas. You can see food and beverages next. This is the regional processing segment. And you can see continued drops in employment in things like textiles and furniture. So the most important value-add segments in the world are the ones that are driven by proximity to demand and innovation. And you can see that playing out in the United States, but you can also see that playing out around the world. This is growth in auto supply, so this is major European auto supply investment, and you can see that they've been increasing investment in North America, just like I showed you on the previous page, but they're also increasing investment all over the world and hugely increasing investment in auto plants in Asia. So they're following not just innovation, but they're following demand. I think this is a very important finding, that manufacturing is not a zero-sum game. This is not about one country winning and other countries losing. This is about the manufacturer sector able to support demand growth with new innovation both in being able to bring new products and more product variety to market, more varieties to different markets and sub-markets that have different tastes and needs, and also able to take advantage of new production technology innovation. And let me just talk a little bit about the innovation side of the story. Innovation is happening on many, many different fronts all at once. And so we see real breakthrough innovations, not just in digital, which we've talked about before, but in new materials. 3D printing is one of only many different production process advancements that we see today. We see changes not only in manufacturing technologies, but also in the very business models that people are using, the way things are bought and sold, even what is bought and sold. So think about the consumer internet. That was about connecting 1 billion consumers on the internet. The industrial internet will connect 50 billion machines. 50 billion machines connected around the world. Think about how the consumer internet has changed the way we interact, the way we collaborate, the way that we sell and buy, even what we sell and buy, the kinds of services we access, the kinds of entrepreneurs that have been created. The industrial internet is beginning to do the same thing, and we will see dramatically new ways of collaborating around manufacturing productivity improvement, of buying and selling capacity, buying and selling skills, in a way that we can only imagine. So this new technologies will change the face of our manufacturing as well, similar to the way that changes in where consumers are and what they demand are changing the face of manufacturing. What does that mean for a country or for a company? What we see is that new ecosystems around manufacturing have to be created. And frankly, there are some sectors and countries that have done better on this than others. So how do we create ecosystems where there are continued investments in advanced manufacturing technologies, where we can foster the supply of critical supply networks? In the United States, what we found is that there are places where companies would like to invest in US manufacturing, but the supply base is no longer there. It's been hollowed out. And the old mechanisms of rebuilding the supply base through big company training, big company investment in new technologies are no longer supporting the development of a rich and diverse and financially stable supply base. And as one of the previous speakers talked about, of course, the skill gap. So how do we invest not only in new technologies, in developing a strong supply base, but also in equipping labor forces to take advantage of these new technologies? How do we align government action and private sector investment to create these kinds of ecosystems that drive sustainable growth in manufacturing? We believe that this will be one of the key differentiators between economies that are able to take advantage of demand changes and new technologies to create sustainable manufacturing, and those that don't. So, in summary, what are our recommendations? First of all, understand where the puck is going, right? The proximity to demand, proximity to innovation. What does that mean for the sectors that you care about? What does it mean for the specific kinds of technologies that are required and the kinds of market opportunities that you could take advantage of? What are the ecosystems then that are going to be important to support these opportunities? And how do we develop the economic case? In the United States, we often see both government entities but also corporations not fully working through all of the economics in terms of understanding how they will drive value and how they will capture value from new technologies, from labor investments, and from creating new opportunities for customers. Support supplier and human capital development in order to ensure that the right capabilities are in place to take advantage of these opportunities. And finally, to start a new trajectory. The trends that I've showed you are really exciting news for manufacturing, and they're exciting news for manufacturing globally. They're new opportunities for manufacturers and for countries to take advantage of changes in customer requirements and all of these new technologies that will ensure that the manufacturing sector is vibrant for years to come. I'll end with a hockey quote. My son's favorite hockey quote from one of his favorite coaches, Herb Brooks, who led the 1980 US winning Olympic team against all odds. It was the miracle team. He said, let me make sure I've got it right here. Great moments are born of great opportunities. We have great opportunities. Now it's up to us to make it a great moment for manufacturing. Thank you.